Okay, here we go. We've got the iKON Flybarless system. We're going to put it on the Fusion 50. Inside we've got the unit in there, pretty small. Nice small package here. Also includes all of the servo wires and everything you'll need. So we'll get this mounted up. I've already put the sticky on the bottom of it, but it comes with, these sticky pads, some real thin gel tape. So we'll put that on the helicopter and we'll show you how to set this bad boy up and also show you how it performs. Alright, now we've got the iKON Flybarless mounted inside the Fusion, and I've taken the head off. So just some tools that are really great for getting a nice level head. We've got this little round bubble level tool. You can use that to make sure your helicopter is flat. Use these bubbles and use shims or coins or whatever you've got to use to make sure it's nice and level when you do this setup. You can also put it here and on the swash plate, make sure that's level. We also have a swash leveling tool which is used here on the side. You can see that these will all line up when you want to set it up perfectly flat. So to make sure your swash plate's nice and level while you're going through the setup, these are some great tools to make sure that you've got it perfect. So get yourself a swash leveler and some sort of bubble level so you can make sure this is nice and flat.
Okay, first thing you're going to want to know is how to set up your receiver and all your servos and everything. So if you open up the iKON configuration app and you come into demo mode, the first step just shows some general instructions. We'll go over those here in a second. Second step here is where you pick the type of receiver setup that you're going to use, and the third panel here shows how it's going to be configured. So for this, you're going to need to know where you're going to apply your battery and all of that stuff. So make sure either with a standard receiver connection you have the battery input into the standard receiver. If you're doing the Futaba S-Bus, you'll plug it in like so. Battery will go into channel 2. If you're doing DSMX or DSM2, battery can plug into channel 2 or channel 3. So when it talks about firing it up, this is where you want to plug in the battery. And it can handle 4.8 volts up to 8.4 volts. So a 2-cell LiPo straight into it is just fine. What you're going to do is, with the helicopter, you're going to disconnect the motor and the ESC if it's electric, just so it doesn't fire it up. Connect the unit to the PC, and then power up the unit, and then you start the application again. So we're going to close this application. We're going to hook the USB up to the iKON Flybarless unit. Then we're going to power it up. I'm going to use DSM2, so I will have my battery plugged into probably channel 2 or channel 3. And then I'm going to start the application again and select the COM port that is new, that is correlated to the Flybarless unit. So let's go get that set up, and then we'll come in here with the basic setup wizard and get started. Alright, so at this point, all I have plugged into the iKON Flybarless system is the power is in channel 2. None of the servos are installed because we have to set up the servo frequencies and everything before we plug in any of the servos. First thing I did before starting up this program, I applied power to the unit while the USB was hooked up, and it installs its own driver. It takes probably a minute or two, and after it installs, it should tell you what COM port it comes up on. If not, go find your device manager, and up in ports it will tell you. You've got the Brain Flybarless, and it says COM16. So you start up the program, you select COM16, and this is the first place it takes you. So we've already gone through these steps. Alright, so now moving on to the next part, we're going to do the bind process here. you select the type of receiver setup that you've got going on here. Most people will probably either be in Spectrum or Futaba S-Bus, but you can also plug it in with the standard receiver if you've got another type of receiver. Whichever one you select, the next step will show you the configuration. Pretty simple here, servo 1, 2, and 3. The tail goes here in number 4. They're all labeled here on top of the Flybarless unit. So it's really easy to find those configurations. The Futaba S-Bus, as we showed you, has a different setup. What I'm going to be doing is DSM2. So what we're going to do is select this, and as it says here, you basically just put a bind plug in there, or you turn the power off, put in a bind plug, and go through the regular binding procedure. So we do that, we're going to power it off. So when we power it off, you'll probably get this disconnected message. So this is going to keep trying to reconnect, but now you can go through the bind process. So you put the bind plug in. Also make sure the satellites are plugged in to the satellite ports. It's not going to work out very well for you if you don't have the satellites plugged in. So we're going to turn it on, and we'll see the flashing that we usually see, and then we go through the bind procedure that we usually do. I'm turning on my DX7 now. You'll see the lights flash fast and then slow, and then they'll go solid. And then you'll see the red active status light start to flash 4 times. Go 1, 2, 3, 4. No, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then the green status light, or the status light, will go green and stay solid green. So now we've gone through the bind procedure. We've got the transmitter on. The satellite LEDs are solid, and we're ready to move on to the next step. We've got DSM2. We still don't have our servos plugged in, but we'll want to remember this. Go on to the next step. Now this is where we're going to get our transmitter set up. It says over here we want all of our aileron, elevator, everything set to plus minus 100. It's probably better to just start out with a new model on your transmitter. And it, like most Flybarless controllers, is going to have that one channel set up. You are going to want to take your gear channel and set that to gyro, because we're going to set the gain from our transmitter. And what it says here, we want to set the gyro gain on the transmitter so that it shows a value of 45 on the panel. So on this panel we'll want to see 45. So let's do that. We're going to come over here to gain, and see as I'm increasing it, this number keeps going up. So we want to make it so this is 45. Okay, so right there on my transmitter it says 79%. If you go down further, you'll get out of that heading lock. In my transmitter we just got below 50, so that's in rate mode. We don't want that. We want this here at 45. Oops, went a little too high. So as it said there, we've got that adjusted to 45. With the other sticks, now I'm going to go to mid stick on my transmitter, 50 in, 50 out. And I'm going to start with my right stick. So I'm pushing my aileron stick up. So up, that's where we want it. Down. That looks like it's what I've got is wrong there, simply because see how it says nose up? Well, when I push the elevator stick forward, I want the nose to go down. The tail's going to go up. So I could go into the servo reversing, and for the elevator, reverse that. So, okay, that would make the nose go down. So that switches this. Now we're going to try the aileron. So right, that's correct. Left, correct. Right, left. So that channel's good. For pitch, positive, that's good. And throttle open. And so those channels are correct. We've got the gain set up. And there's an aux channel. Oh, this is my 7th channel. It goes between setup 1 and 3. So I've got those 2 banks in there ready to go. Okay. So it looks like my channels are correct. Double checking them all on both sticks. Now, having them centered, I can go back to 50 in, 50 out. What we're going to do is set up the 0% and the maximum throws on these channels. So to get 0%, we're going to go to subtrim, and it looks like the only one that doesn't have 0 is the elevator, the one that I reversed. So we're going to add just a little bit of subtrim here on the elevator channel. Okay, there we go. So that is at 0 now. So now that we've got all of these at 0, heading lock is in 45. Throttle curb is at 50% open. This is at 0. Now we're going to adjust the total throws. So first thing we'll do is change to travel adjust, and we'll just start here with the top on the aileron. So we're going to take the right stick and do the full throw on the aileron. So we're going to go all the way right, and that's only 85%. So we're going to keep increasing that. We'll see it turns green at some point. We can go past 100, but we want that exactly at 100%. Now we're going to go to the other side and adjust add the travel adjust to get that to 100 as well. Okay. Next is the elevator, so we're going to the elevator travel adjust. Bring the stick all the way up and add a little bit in there for 100. All the way down. %, there. Okay, so we got 100, 100. Looks like that one actually, yeah. If you want to give it 101 or 102, it won't hurt because you might actually end up losing just a little bit of overall throw if you get dust in your sticks. But okay, now rudder is what we're going to do next. So go right all the way. Oh wait. So I'm giving it right stick, which would be nose right. So I need to actually go back and reverse that channel as well. Okay, so here we go. That's reversed. So go back to 50. Yeah, it's okay. Middle stick, it's at 50-50. So now we're back to the travel adjust here. Bring that up to 100%. Alright. Now left, we're bringing that up to 100%. Okay. Just a little more on this one. A little less. Okay. Now we're going to give it full throttle and pitch stick. And now we're going to the pitch. So we'll add to that 100%. Now we're all the way down, stick on the left stick. Adjust that up to 100%. Okay. Now we can actually go into the throttle. So you got to make sure you're on a setting where the throttle curve is straight. So mine is straight. I'm in normal mode. Okay. So this one actually counts down. Interesting. Okay, so 0%. And then full throttle. Alright, now this one's going up to 100%. Okay, so we've got those plus minus 100 and 0, 100 with the pitch and the throttle. And we're going to go back to 50-50, 50 in, 50 out. And those are still at 0, 0, 0, 0, 45, 50, 0. Okay. And any of the sticks, if we go full one way or full the other way, looks like I've still got an extra 1% there. But we want to have plus or minus 100%. And these are all set up exactly how we want. I've added quite a bit of travel adjust. They're all about 120 to 130 in my transmitter. Only a little bit of elevator sub trim, and that's it. Now the transmitter's set up correctly. Also, just do another double check and make sure you've got the directions good to go. So aileron right, left, forward elevator, which is nose down, back on the elevator, nose up, tail right, tail with the nose right on the right rudder, left rudder, pitch and throttle. Okay, now going to the next window. This is where you pick your servo setup. Analog servo if it's a regular digital servo or a high-end digital servo, or same thing with your tail. You want to make sure that you go and read the specifications about the particular servo that you're using. I'm using high-end digital servo and tail. It's 760 with a 560 hertz. That's the Outrage 9188 that I'm using, and some JR 8717s for my cyclic. If you can't find exactly what frequency and refresh rate is appropriate for your servo, do some searches on Google, look at servo frequency chart or servo frequency table, and you should be able to go find the information on the servos that you're using and what settings that they can handle and what's recommended. If you don't know, ask around, go put up a post on one of the forums. Make sure you get this right, because you could damage your servo if you don't pick the correct one. So now we'll move on to the next page. Okay, in this next page, this is where you pick the servo geometry setup that you have going. Some of the older helicopters might have this 90-degree setup. Most of us are probably doing the 120-degree. This is what I'm doing. My Fusion, looking from the rear of the heli, has the two aileron servos in the front and the elevator in the back. So this is the one that I'm going to select. Some of you might be doing a 140 setup. If the two ailerons are in the front and elevators in the back, then you'll pick one of these bottom ones. If your elevator's in the front and the ailerons are in the back, then you'll pick one of these top ones. So now that we see what our servo setup is, we're going to take the front right, plug that into SRV1 in the port. The elevator is going to go into SRV2, and the other aileron is going to go into SRV3. So now I'm going to go and plug these guys in, and we'll come and check back. Alright, now I have my cyclic servos plugged in. As you can hear, probably the buzzing. So now we'll move on to the next step. Okay, this page is where we're going to adjust our servos, make sure they're in the proper directions and everything for your setup. So this is when we're busting out the swash plate leveler. We want to make sure everything's level, but first we want to make sure each servo is moving the correct direction. So first what you want to do is go up to this servo, click down, and if that makes that swash move down, then you're good. If it makes it move up, then you want to click servo reverse. And this servo reverse will affect the last servo that you made adjustments to. So that is good to go. Make these at 0. Servo 2, next, same thing. Click down. Okay, that moves my servo down. That's perfect. Up goes up. Servo 3, click down. Oh, okay, so that one, when I click down, it moves it up. So I'm actually going to want to reverse that channel. Click on that, and then you click down again. Oh, didn't work that time. Okay, so yeah, now when I click down, it goes down. You'll see if you move the sticks, it moves really suddenly because it's got a very wide dead band for that center servo. So this makes sure that your servos are right at center stick. You want to have all your horns at 90 degrees. You're going to be at 50% on your transmitter. And once you have all of these adjusted, then your swash plate should be moving in the correct directions. If not, go back and check the directions during the transmitter setup and make sure everything is correct there. Alright, now that all your servos are moving in the correct direction, this is when you're going to make adjustments in the up or down values to make sure that your swash is leveled. So you've got your swash leveler tool, and what you want to see is that there's no gap between the end of the swash plate level tool and the part of the swash plate that has the ball link. So let's see, my left aileron looks like it is a little bit low. So 4 clicks and that gets rid of the gap for that one. And it looks like my servo 2 is perfect. My servo 1 needs to go up a little bit. 1, 2, 3. I think 3 would be good for that. Okay, so now all of them are good to go and there's no gap in between. And this makes sure you have a nice level swash plate. Also, if you have a bubble tool that you can get in there to make sure your helicopter's perfectly level and that the swash plate is perfectly level, that's another great tool. And this will make sure that you've got much better flight characteristics if you level the swash plate this way. Alright, now at this point I still have my head block off, so I'm going to leave the pitch where it's at. We can go and come back and adjust the overall pitch once we've got the head on and we've got some blades on. The pinion is removed so it won't spin up, and we can check and make sure that it's exactly 0 degrees the way it's set up now. And if we have to make some adjustments to raise or lower the swash, we can do that here. And then we can also adjust the pitch for plus or minus however many degrees we have. A nice digital pitch gauge is good for that. So we're going to get through most of the process of what we can now, and then we'll power it down, put the head on, and finish it up. At least that's how I'm going to do it. You can adjust the cyclic throw here. So what you'd want to do is give it like full right stick and see, okay, make sure the swash isn't binding against the main shaft, and mine isn't. So I can give it a little bit more overall, and it's definitely binding now, so I'm going to
bring it back a little bit. Okay, and then go in the other direction, make sure it's okay. So just make fine adjustments. Going with my aileron. Alright, make sure elevator doesn't bind either. So get to a level where it does bind, and then or see where it binds, and then back it off just a little bit. Elevator in the other direction. Okay, we're just making sure it's not binding. Going for full throws. Okay. So we've got quite a bit of aileron throw, quite a bit of elevator throw, and it's not binding the swash plate against the main shaft. So that's how you want it, and we'll come make adjustments to these later on once we've got the head. So now on to the next step. Okay, so here we have the tail setup. What you can do is it has a wide center band set up again, so check the direction with the rudder, give it a little, okay, so make sure it's moving in the correct direction, and mine is. If it's not, you can do the reverse, and so it knows which way to correct. If you have, like most people, your blades going clockwise, for the rotor rotation you'll want to choose clockwise. Some of you guys might have it going counterclockwise with the tail set up a little bit different, but that is probably more of an exception. Most guys are going to pick clockwise. If you need any pitch pre-comp or cyclic pre-comp, it's like a pre-compensation. It adds a little bit of mix in there, a little bit of tail with the pitch or tail with the cyclic. If your tail's kicking or something, gives you that option. I've tried it before, it hasn't really worked out for me, but if you like it, give it a shot. See how your tail feels. Okay, next what we're going to do is, now that we know that we've got the correct direction, adjust the overall throw. So let's see, okay, this is for nose right, so I've got no binding. Go to where it binds, it's binding. Now pull it back one. Okay, that's good. So other side, go to where it binds a little bit on your tail. Mine's binding. Now kick it back one. So now this is how I know I've got the overall correct cyclic, or the correct tail overall throw. So now that we've got that correct and it's going in the correct direction, we can move on to the next step. Alright, in this step you're going to pick the direction or the unit orientation that you've got. You can have it on the right side with the wires up front, upside down with the wires on the front, have it on the other side, wires in front, wires in the back. Pretty much any configuration you can think of right here is available. I've got top up, mine's facing up, and my wires are facing the front, so that is what I'm going to set up. You're also going to want to get your helicopter as level as possible. Use that bubble level to get the swash plate looking as perfectly level as possible. And when you do that, or by doing that, you're going to, after that, click on this set level, so the unit knows exactly what level is. So I'm looking at my bubble levels here, everything's looking good. I've had to use a little bit of paper to adjust my helicopter a little bit and make sure it's level, so Just double checking all the bubbles now. Make sure everything's good. And when you do that, and once you've got your bubbles all set up the way you like, everything's all centered, mine looks good, that's when you click on this set level button. And then after you do that, you can move on to the next step. Okay, this next page is for the governor setup. As you saw back here, there's a gov plug, and it basically pulls the power and signal similar to satellite here so that you can provide power to your governor. It's great, it gives you the power you need. You don't have to overpower the phase sensor by trying to use the 2-cell power that you've got here, and you don't have to use a bunch of step downs on your supply to get it down to a voltage that's safe for your phase sensor and governor. So this is nice. You might have to get a satellite cable and cut it and then wire those into the supply voltage for your phase sensor. Depending on the ESC setup that you have, this is basically going to overstep any of the ESC settings that you have and take over. So don't set up any governor inside your ESC, or when we get into the setup to turn the governor on or off, make sure it's off on the Flybarless unit if you're using the governor on your ESC, or make sure it's off on your ESC if you plan on using the Flybarless governor. So this is going to depend on your overall ESC setup. Whatever is your preference. I'm probably going to try it once just using the governor on my Scorpion ESC, and then I'll set this up and try the governor here. But when you do set this up, you first enter your gear ratio. If you don't know, you can go to the calculator. You can enter the gear ratio for your main gear and also the pinion count. So you can enter that. This sensing divisor, if you're running a nitro, it's 1. And if you're running an electric, it's your magnetic pole count divided by 2. So if you've got a 10 pole motor, then this will be 5. If it's an 8 pole motor, it'll be 4. You've got 3 settings for speed 1, 2, and 3, basically normal, idle 1, idle 2. Speed 1, as it says down here, is going to be anything from 25 to 49% on the throttle curve. Recommend a flat 30%. Anything between 0 and 25, there's basically no gov. For speed 2, throttle curve is anywhere between 50 and 74. It recommends a flat line of 60. And for speed 3, anything between 75 and 100, and it says to do a flat 100%. So when I use this governor, I'm going to have, probably for normal mode, I'll have 0, 30, 30, 30, and for idle 1 I'll have all 60, and for idle 2 I'll have all 100 flat curve. And then that will have these values. If you try to enter something that doesn't make sense, okay, so I thought that color would change or something, but no. So be careful, make sure you pick head speeds that are safe and good for your size. So I'll probably just have like a 1900. I'll probably end up having a 2000 and a 2100. And that would probably be good enough. Here you can adjust the gain for your governor. Okay, these for the throttle and the reverse, they're for if you have a throttle servo. Just the same way we made the adjustments here, you're going to make some adjustments here to make sure you've got the right endpoints and that it's going in the correct direction. If it's nitro and you have a magnet, there you go. When you're testing it out, when you're coming in here and you're all plugged in and you've safely taken the blades and everything off, you can fire it up and put it into idle 1 and 2 and make sure that the current RPM is matching what you want it to be, and this will give you a chance to test out your phase sensor and everything. So I might do an update video later showing how to do that, but right now I'm just going to move past here and I'm not going to set up the governor. I'm going to use the governor in my ESC. But that's basically what you would go through if you do plan on using this governor. So on to the next page. Okay, on this page it has a bunch of pre-settings that would have gain values and whatnot that would be specific to a certain size. So just pick the size model that you've got, or whichever is closest to the size model that you've got, and it will set up a lot of stuff for you ready to go. I'm flying a Outrage Fusion 50, which is a 600 size machine, so I'll pick the 600 and we'll move on to the next page. Alright, now moving on to this next page, you'll actually see that depending on what you have set here, your initial values here will be different. See how it's 39% there with a 250, it's 19%. If it's 700, you'll see it goes up to 43. So the settings on with the cyclic gain on these will be determined by what you pick here. And you can also have your 3 banks set up 1, 2, and 3. On mine with aux2, it goes between default setup and setup 3. You can decide here whether or not you want to use the governor and auto level. I'm not using governor, so I'm going to keep these unchecked. If you are using the governor and you have all that stuff set up and your phase sensors and whatnot, then you click on the use governor. You can change the agility. Default is, I believe, 50. I think I'll probably turn mine here to 60, 65, try it out, see how it works. I'll have a 3D mode and a hardcore 3D mode just to see how they feel. If this is too much, I'll probably just do both 3D or try coming in here another time and try sport and 3D and see how it works. But that's what I'm going to do there. And that's about all you need to know about this setup here. There's a couple different settings. If things aren't quite right for you, try a different setup. Pretty docile here for the beginner setup. Hardcore 3D is going to be really quick. Agility, experiment with this, find out what works for you. Probably more hardcore up at the top, probably more beginner down below. So the final page here, it just has you check the final setup. You want to tip your helicopter, look at it from the front or the back, and make sure if you tip it that the swash plate is trying to stay level, not tipping in the same direction but the opposite direction that you tip it. Same with the elevator. When you tip it forward, you want the swash to go back. When you tip it back, you want the swash to go forward, but basically try to stay level. Also with the tail, you'll find that if you push it right, the slider will go left. If you push it left, the slider should go right. And that is it for the setup. Once you've got to this point, shut off this program and power it down, and you're good to go with the initial setup. Give it a shot, try it out, mess with these settings before you come in and you try to go into advanced. Here in advanced you have this other view where you can come and mess with, I don't have my radio plugged in right now for the recording, so it's kind of twitching all over the place. But here you can go back and revisit all these settings. Basically it's the same stuff that you've got here in a different view, and on some of them you have more options basically. Great thing about this is when you hover over stuff, it gives you a little explanation here. So if you have any questions, You can hover over something, check mode, like this is used to set up the servos and linkages. When selected, the gyro for the swash plate and tail are disabled. So it's the stick dead band thing is increased to make it in the center, so it's gonna be really twitchy if you try to change the cyclic. But that should be a mode that you use to make it easy to check center. Also here, if you want to copy your setup from one bank to another bank, like you've done everything all in setup 1, that's your default, that's what you've gone through. We want to copy that onto all setups or just one other setup, then you can do that, copy it over. Here on the servos, you can change the set frequencies higher. Just be careful, you could damage your servo if you've got something wrong, so make sure you know what you're doing if you mess with any of these settings. Here, frame rate and reverse. It's just a different interface basically for a lot of the stuff. But you've got some more options in here like mixers, and checking the swash plate phasing and all this stuff. It's pretty involved once you start getting to this level, so just make sure you go through the basic setup, get that stuff going, and if you want to mess with any of these things, the defaults will be dependent on what you have here in the basic setup once you go when you've gone through that. But you basically get a chance to come in here and tweak every little setting. So if you're going to change stuff, change it just a little bit at a time. Don't change anything really dramatically, because you might find that it flies very different than it did the last time, and you might crash because it flies just differently. Different languages available here. Apparently you have to restart if you choose a different language. We've got a little bit about the version here, and then you can have a link to the website here from the help. And also you can save and load files and update firmware or reset to its factory defaults here from the file menu if you have to. So that is the setup for the iKON Flybarless system in a nutshell. We're going to give it a shot here, give it a few flights, take it through the ringer, try some of these different flight settings, and expect some videos to see what I think about it. Alright, thanks for watching, guys.
That's fine. Seems fairly smooth. A higher head speed. Tail seems locked in pretty well. Definitely got a good feel to it. Try flying around a little. Still feeling pretty smooth. Very locked in. I like it. Wow, that locks in really nice. Wow, nice and solid. hardcore on the aileron TikTok. And this is just a regular standard 3D. Wow, that is locked in. I like it. Nice and smooth. Wow, I really like this controller so far. Aside from some frozen fingers, it feels really nice. Tail is locked in. Butter smooth. Oh, yeah, I like it. Of course I didn't set my timer. It really shines though in those aileron TikTok. Love it. Love the way it feels. Oh, it feels great. Fusion 50 with the iKON Flybarless unit. That was the first flight with it, and that is very, very smooth. I like it. Gets my seal of approval.